Okay, thanks everyone for coming out. It's early November, the year is 2019, and we're going to talk today about chemtrails, geoengineering, weather modification history. By the time we're done with this presentation, I hope that the viewers, both on the internet and in the audience, can learn about the controlled debate surrounding chemtrails and the truth, like literally know the truth. You know, we've all got different stories about how we woke up to this rain in our skies, but really, there's always this debate, and I want people to know that there is no debate, okay? Truth is truth. And just like any of this other presentation that the other presenters are putting on, the ultimate goal is truth, elevating to that vibration, that frequency of truth. And once you're on that vibration of truth, whether it's chemtrails or anything else, that vibration of truth will lead you to other truths. Okay, so that's the point of it all, really, in my opinion. So I'd like to start off by telling my story about how I woke up to chemtrails. I've heard a lot of different people's stories, and they're all amazing. And sometimes you really need that aha moment to really see what's going on in the skies, to really realize the lies in our skies. And for me, I'm a normal guy. My name's Matt Landman, by the way. I grew up on the East Coast. I went to Virginia Tech, got a marketing management bachelor's of science, moved to the West Coast because I wanted to get into filmmaking. Had like 30, 40 different types of jobs, worked in real estate, worked in finance. I was a finance analyst. Went back to school, got a master's in business administration, graduated top of my class. Big deal, it's all a big indoctrination process. I got out of there, I didn't realize that I hadn't learned anything. I didn't know anything about anything, but I had a big bill to the government. I got a film degree too. I ended up using that to make Frankenstein's a documentary, thank you. But my biggest realization was when I stopped working for the corporate world at the age of 35 and went to work on a farm. And on that farm, my first day, I realized potatoes grew potatoes, and I knew I didn't know anything. I knew that that indoctrination system didn't do shit for me, didn't do anything for me, you know? What did it prove? I didn't learn anything that was tangible, and I was disconnected from the environment, from the air, from the sky, from the land, from all of it, right? And I learned about the seed, and that potatoes actually grew potatoes. And while I was on this potato farm, I witnessed weather modification firsthand. We're in the midst of a catastrophic drought, 4 years deep into this drought, and finally we were getting this massive rainstorm. I was told to come into work with my rain gear. We were harvesting pumpkins and potatoes and squash, because we were worried about the rot in the field. And here came the storm off the ocean, massive black clouds. And this is in rural Northern California, very sparse air traffic altogether. Maybe I'd see a plane in one day, okay? Very rural Northern California, coastal farmland. And on this given day, when the storm came to alleviate the 4-year drought, and the trees, the 3,000-year-old redwood trees and all of the life around, they were anticipating this storm. Everything, the entire ecosystem was anticipating this final reprieve from this drought. And as the storm came, 100% chance of rain for 1 week. And as the storm came, a dozen planes showed up in the sky. See, it's this irregular pattern of appearance that I really like to talk about, because sometimes we don't have this air traffic, and sometimes we do. And then when the air traffic has this irregular uptick in appearance, then there's also these lines in the sky that accompany it. And what I witnessed was, on the edge of the storm pattern, a dozen planes came, sprayed the sky with these lines out of the back. The storm came, didn't drop one drop of rain, okay? The sky was black for almost a week, but no rain fell out. And I just scratched my head and said, thank God I didn't get wet. And I kept living my life. Fast forward about a month, and I'm on the phone with my friend from the East Coast, and we're talking about, oh, the kids nowadays, they don't know about 9/11 and whatnot. And he says, yeah, you know, they weren't even born then. But how can they deny chemtrails? It's right in their face. And I said, what, excuse me? What's that? What's that word, chemtrails? And he said, Matt, you woke me up to 9/11, man. And you showed me about GMOs. You don't know about chemtrails? Dude, you got to get with the program, look it up online. And I looked it up, and it clicked. I'd seen it, and I started looking up, and the rest is history. You know, I really got active because I realized nobody knew about it. Not a single person, you know? I'd ask these questions to my friends, families, peers, people on the streets. I started making flyers and just asking, do you know about this? Do you know? And if they knew about it, they knew that it was a conspiracy, and that's all they knew. They knew that it wasn't true, but it actually was. So we do what we can, and eventually we have to think about maybe our upbringing, maybe our childhood, and start to think about, did we see these kinds of things when we were growing up? Because the sky, it is changing, okay? And there is this normalization timeline to get us to accept the changes in our skies that weren't there during our childhood. So through the past decade, there's been this normalization launch of chemtrails or geoengineering to be accepted by the masses as a solution. So it's a pretty diabolical plan. So they have to first control the media to control the minds of the people. And they introduce these different pivotal news media announcements, such as geoengineering is a bad idea, but chemtrails aren't real. And then Obama signs off on geoengineering. We're going to talk about all this, but I just want to give you a little introductory timeline of how it all pans out. So the two words that were given in this controlled dialogue, this controlled conversation, are chemtrails and geoengineering, okay? And literally the powers that be took that word chemtrails and ran it through the mud. They had CIA agents in cities literally telling people, you're getting poisoned, look at the lines in the sky. It's crazy, acting crazy, yelling at the sky, pointing at the lines, and this word was demonized. You say this word to even the majority of the populace nowadays, and they know in their deepest, darkest, they know. For sure, they know, even though they don't know. They know that it's this crazy talk, crazy conspiracy. But the word geoengineering, on the other hand, that is actually our savior. This is the dimming of the sun to save us from the heating of the planet. And although they are the exact same thing, the spraying of chemicals in the sky via planes, these two words have been twisted, okay? And even controlled opposition pretend activists hijacked the terminology and made it so that there was this controlled debate surrounding the two terms, although they are identical. So the mainstream media will tell you chemtrails are not real, and you're crazy if you think that spraying out of the back of jets called chemtrails is real. But we're spraying out of the back of jets, but we're calling it geoengineering. It's just a play on your mind. They control your mind, they keep you pacified, keep you questioning which truth is real, and then you don't know which truth is real, and you don't do anything about it. So the consolidation of the media is able to basically minimize our exposure to the truth and proliferate these lies. In 1983, 90% of the American media was owned by 50 companies. We actually had a trusted news source back then. Come 2011, 6 companies had gobbled up most of the media, and nowadays it's about 5 companies that own almost all the media in the world. And they control the conversation, they control the dialogue, they control the outcome, they control our perceptions, and they're all handed the same script, twisted different ways to convey a different message, to get across what they want. And all these media companies are basically owned by one family. So I really encourage you, if you're awake to this information and you see through the lies, and really it's a big test of our discernment. Learning how to discern in this empire of lies is actually a blessing and a curse. But once you can discern and see through the layers of fake news on top of fake news on top of fake news to mess with your ability to see the truth, to discern, tell your friends and family and peers and get them to get through it themselves as well, and to discern and to see the truth. And how can we see the truth? Well, first of all, they double speak and they go back on what is said. So firstly, when I was growing up, there was an ice age on the horizon. Time magazine even had it on the front page. But you can't really reverse engineer an ice age when you're working with electromagnetic frequencies that superheat the atmosphere and you use heat waves, right? So they reverse engineered what they had, and they say, well, we can use frequency tech, and we can actually heat the planet with our frequency tech. Well, let's scare them into the idea of global warming. So they flipped the script on us. And then all of a sudden, we are emotionally provoked, our heartstrings are plucked, and we are fear-mongered and emotionally drawn and scared into this polar bear. This actual polar bear, the skinny one right here, okay? This polar bear was seen by 1 billion people. Okay, when you can control the media, you can control what they see. And they were all worried about this bear and the heating of the planet, right? Because the news is telling us to be very, very worried about the bears. But if you do your research, come to find out, the bears are actually fine. They are. They're thriving. There's more bears than ever, okay? So think about that skinny polar bear, because you probably saw that skinny polar bear. But they still use the bears to mess with your emotions and to tell you that Congress is looking into geoengineering as a last-ditch climate change solution. So what's the Hegelian dialectic and how does it work? I know we're going to talk about this at this conference today over and over, but really we all need to understand it because there's layers of it. It's how the vaccine agenda, it's how all the agendas play out. It's this master-slave dialectic. George Hegel was a philosopher at the turn of the century, and he created this master-slave dialectic is what he called it. It's a problem-reaction-solution scenario where the powers that be sit in a room basically and come up with the problem and our reaction, which is usually fear, and the solution. They come up with it ahead of time, okay? So they know what the problem is going to be because they've created it, and they know what the solution is going to be because they've created it. For instance, 9/11, and the solution being the war on terror and losing our rights and what have you. And this is how rights and liberties are exchanged for the illusion of protection from our government, okay? So when you control the media, you can control the conversation, you can control the outcome. So we only hear these two terms, chemtrails and geoengineering. Well, guess what? There's been a lot of ongoing spraying campaigns. And we're never told about these ongoing programs. But there's the CARE program, the Charged Aerosol Release Experiment from NASA. NASA, with a budget of $52 million a day, has the Charged Aerosol Release Experiment, where they have a fleet of drones and planes spraying our atmosphere in what they call using the atmosphere as, quote, a laboratory. We've got the Solar Radiation Management Project. We've got the Solar Radiation Management Governance Initiative. We've got the solar radiation management, our sunlight, being governed. Okay, so this program is ongoing, and there's actually governance determining who gets sun, when, and where. There's the SAI program, Stratospheric Aerosol Injection Program, going on with the CIA for over 2 decades. They publicly talk about it, but they call it the SAI program. And because we've been so conditioned to only thinking about the two terms, or maybe we think about contrails, chemtrails, and geoengineering, we don't see the bigger picture, and it's hidden right before our eyes. There's also the Stratospheric Particle Injections for Climate Engineering, the SPICE program. Okay, so if you're interested, you can look these up and see that these have been ongoing, and then you can look at your skies and see, well, it starts to make sense, doesn't it? So the Tropospheric Aerosol program is the biggest one. This is my aha moment. When I read this 100-page document, it's all right there, hidden in plain sight. The Department of Energy. Yes, the Department of Energy. Even the film, even the movies or series Stranger Things, they demonize the Department of Energy. And then when I bring it up recently, they're like, oh yeah, like Stranger Things? And I'm like, yeah, actually, just like Stranger Things. And people can't do it because they've already been programmed. But in 2001, March 2001, something big happened in the fall of 2001, the biggest distraction of our lifetimes, 9/11. But right before then, this public document was released by the Department of Energy. Okay, and a lot of people want to know, for the chemtrails scenario, well, who, what, why, where, when, and how, so I can take this information to my friend, family, and peers. I have to know the who, what, why, where, when, and how. Okay? This is the who, this is the when, this is the why. So why did dirty coal, dirty oil want to block the sun? Well, they didn't want solar power to proliferate. You know, that makes perfect sense. And, you know, you follow the money. It's easy now to kind of share that with your friend, family, and peers. In this document, the word contrail, completely debunked, okay? We've got high bypass turbofan jet engines nowadays, okay? We have for decades. These engines are big fans. They release not superheated air, okay? The air is not superheated. There is no condensation trail. There's no trail coming out of the jet engines. What they call them in this document, where they reveal that the contrail is a con, it's part of this vocabulary control, they call them precursor gases that they're mixing with the next layer of gases. And when you see the quote contrail and then you see the quote chemtrail right next to each other, they're just mixing two gases, and they're mixing two chemicals in your sky. But you've been so conditioned to say, oh, that's a contrail because it's a short line. Just because it's a short line doesn't mean it's not a different chemical, okay? And this document exposes all of it. It doesn't say the word chemtrails, doesn't say the word contrails, doesn't say the word geoengineering, but they extrapolate their budget out for years. They spend over $5 million on not being discovered by the public, quote, in the document, and they grid the city of Nashville, Tennessee, not the countryside, but they grid the city of Nashville, Tennessee with multiple chemicals. It's in the document. It's actually printed right back there if you guys want to look at it, or you can just look it up, Tropospheric Aerosol Program, DOE.pdf. It's right there on the internet, hidden in plain sight. Change your life forever in regards to this. So this is just a meme that we put together. Look, Dad, it's a contrail. Actually, son, the concept of a contrail is a falsehood created through propaganda and controlled media as a confusion tactic and misinformation campaign. Truth is, that too is a chemtrail, just a different chemical. Usually you will see the short trail first laid out as a primer to mix with other chemicals. In the document, they call it precursor gases. It's like you're making a soup, you need your base. It's like you're painting a picture and you need your base of paint or whatever, right? So let's talk about civil society actors. This is very, very important. How could the media actually pull this off? The Google searches are changing, which is unreal and sad and hilarious, but this is a Google search from about a year ago. Now it's not like this anymore. So interesting. But civil society actors, the aggregate of non-governmental organizations, institutions that manifest the interests and will of the public. So there's these people in society that are actors that are manifesting the will of you all, us, the public, by convincing us different things. To what end? Let's talk about that. So there was this group of civil society actors that met in Washington, D.C. They actually meet every year. I've got their printout in the back from 2013, which really shows what they're up to. These are media affiliates, like news anchors and whatnot, being told what to say and how to say it. And so they all come together and they say, well, how are we going to convince the world that they need their sun blocked out? We need to convince them so that they don't resist this idea of blocking their sun, geoengineering. So a few suggested to shift the conversation in productive ways, geoengineering will first be characterized publicly as a terrible choice. Okay? So wait. They want it to happen, but they're going to tell the world that it's a bad idea. Well, they control the argument. They control both sides of the conversation, and eventually they'll say it's actually a good idea. We just wanted to say it was a bad idea to get you thinking about it first. One participant said, society is actually lousy at strategy, but we, however, are not. So what do right after this meeting when they've discussed this? The news, the BBC, the global news affiliates, they come out, 2014, geoengineering could harm billions. So they're telling us it's a bad idea, but just to get the conversation going, to get the concept in our minds that we might need it, but it's a bad idea, right? If all else fails, The Economist, man-made global cooling is scary but may become necessary. Look at this photo from NASA. Where did they get this photo if it doesn't exist yet? Then they come out with the survey, 2016. Chemtrails are a conspiracy theory. 77 atmospheric chemists and geochemists were surveyed, and 76 responded that there is no evidence of a large-scale spraying program. So this really rattled my nerves because I get these Google alerts anytime chemtrails or geoengineering or civil society actors or climate engineer, these certain terms are dropped in the internet. I get a daily email so I can keep up with it, so I can tell my 45,000 followers on Facebook what's going on in the propaganda world. Well, this debunking of chemtrails, perfectly timed because they're just about to launch geoengineering as a solution and they need to make sure everybody's thinking that chemtrails are crazy, but then they're going to control the way that we perceive reality and tell us geoengineering is necessary. They come out with this study, and it is totally bogus and weird, and they show us pictures of chemtrails, and then they say, is a secret large-scale atmospheric spraying program the simplest explanation? And they claim that people said no, but the entire study is ran and funded by Mick West, a debunker computer programmer guy that runs a website called Metabunk that debunks everything. He'll debunk a bicycle that makes electricity. He'll debunk anything, like a bicycle that you're pedaling that makes electricity. He debunks it. He debunks anything out there. So here we go, 2016. Forbes magazine, Washington Post. Scientists tell the world chemtrails are not real. But they've got those nice photos to show you. USA Today, scientists disprove chemtrail theory. New York Times, scientists just say no to chem. So anybody who's on the fence or maybe thinking that they knew the truth, oh, well, the studies are out. And then even my grandmother, because I'm working on this film, Frankenskies, my grandmother sent me this one, the USA Today. She sent me the USA Today article and she said, Matt, chemtrails are actually not real. You can stop that. And then every publication on earth just about, this shows their grip, their control. This shows the media, how many of them are under the same umbrella of the same falsehoods and told how to say what to you to control the way you think. And you just scroll down on your Facebook or your Twitter and your timeline, you see the headline, and now it's a fact in your head. You didn't even click on the article. Not you, but people, just think. So here we are. Chemtrails are harmless. Chemtrails aren't real. Study says they're harmless. Leading science debunk the theory. Chemtrails are fake. Are chemtrails a con? Experts' consensus, chemtrails are actually not a thing. And then, okay, so this is unreal. So we're going to go back just to run this into the ground so you can see this. This is August 14th, August 16th, August 15th, 2016. So August 16th, 2016, chemtrails are not real. August 24th, 2016, 1 week later, this guy has a plan to save us from ourselves. Remember, chemtrails are not real. If you thought they were real, you're crazy. He's going to spray in this particulates in the atmosphere to dim the sun. He says that chemtrail conspiracy theorists are out to get him, though, and he's a victim, and you should worry about this guy, David Keith. You should be concerned about what he's saying. And then the media tells us that Bill Gates, who, I don't know if you know, don't trust him, he's the sugar daddy of geoengineering, has the patents. He and David Keith have the patents on geoengineering and are making lots of money by spraying our skies. And he even says in 2010 he can't wait to do it, and he's actually lobbying for large-scale geoengineering and also claimed to be the sugar daddy of the entire campaign. Not the Bill Gates, Melinda Gates Foundation, but Bill Gates individually financing this entire thing. Wow. So the New York Times, again, with the indoctrination, can we change the weather? And what about the word chemtrails? Where did that even come from? They just started to show up in 1995, around the mid-90s. Prior to that, most family photos in the 80s, they don't have them at all, right? And we've got dark cobalt blue skies. The word's derived from chemical trail. We talked about this earlier, but this is the biggest thing. People butt up against their cognitive dissonance. A mental conflict occurs, contradicted by new information. It's like, no, well, I already think this one way. This new information totally destroys my reality. I'd rather just go back to comfort. But is ignorance actually bliss? I don't think so. So how do they get away with this? Everyone wants to know, how could they get away with this? And for me, it's just these words: indoctrination, compartmentalization, need-to-know basis. So how could the guys in the planes do this? Well, they're compartmentalized, they're indoctrinated, and they're on a need-to-know basis. They think they're actually doing something good, you know? Let's talk about the irregular pattern of appearance. This can wake people up. This can really, really help. I like to bring the attention to the blue sky days when there's nothing going on. Wow, no planes in the sky today, nothing. Then the days where there's all the lines in the sky, there's not all of a sudden flights zigzagging over your house going to Hawaii and back. Something's going on. When you can count 12 planes in the sky, leaving lines on the edge of a storm front maybe, or who knows what, start to look and see it for yourself, right? Do your research. Don't just listen to me. Research shows that the primary components are barium salts, aluminum oxide, strontium, lithium, cadmium, titanium. It's a dirty mix of heavy metals that they mix together Some are charged positively, some are charged negatively. They mix in your atmosphere. The biggest thing that we need to know is not only can we, in my film Frankenskies, it starts off in the 1920s. By the time the film gets to modern day, it is self-evident that we control the weather, the government, the US Air Force, the powers that be. We can make it rain on forest fires. We can make it rain anytime we want. We are also spraying barium salts and aluminum oxide on our forests, which is fire accelerants. So not only are we spraying fire accelerants, but we're not putting out fires when we can with our weather control. So think about it. This is all a nefarious campaign to maybe herd humanity. So I typed chemtrails into Google, conspiracy theory, okay? But then Business Insider has an article that looks just like chemtrails and says, this last-ditch planet hacking plan could keep Earth habitable. Keep Earth habitable. Look at the juxtaposition here. One thing is keeping Earth habitable. The other thing is a crazy conspiracy, and you shouldn't even believe it's true. Like, which is true? So let's talk about what's true. This man died. FBI chief Ted Gunderson. He started speaking up. He did some videos even saying what the planes were doing, where he saw them and whatnot, and he died mysteriously. Even Kylie Jenner said something. She's got more followers on Twitter than anybody on earth, and at least she said something. She doesn't know how to spell responsible, but she does bring up good points. Why are the bees dying off? How come nobody's doing anything about this? Is anybody seeing this but me? You know, after this tweet, she was silenced. She never talked about it again, but people are thinking for themselves, even she is. So back in the 70s, it was common knowledge that the weather was controlled. People thought they were going to have to start voting to see who got rain when because they knew that the weather was controlled. In the 50s, Operation Large Area Coverage, they sprayed San Francisco with biological weapons, dispersed microscopic zinc cadmium sulfide to see how many people would get sick, like literally experimenting on our population. In the Vietnam conflict or war, the Vietnam conflict, what happened there was we flooded the Ho Chi Minh Trail. We turned rain into a war weapon, and the entire world saw it, and they knew, okay? And they came together after they saw Operation Popeye and saw us flood the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and 125 countries voted, 125 to 0, saying we have to ban weather war weaponry, because otherwise it's going to be pretty crazy if we're all using weather as a weapon, because we all know that this technology exists. December 9th, 1974. So when these hurricanes are out of control and whatever, I mean, we can stop hurricanes, we can make hurricanes. We actually have the HAMP, Hurricane Atmospheric Modification Program, right there, hidden in plain sight, where carbon soot is administered into hurricanes to either exacerbate or quell them. So these storms, look at this, weather war ban approved 1974. We know how to control the weather. Even this House of Representatives member, Dennis Kucinich, he proposed a bill, okay, HR 2977, and in it he said, 2001 bill, we need to not use chemtrails on each other. He was pulled aside and they got rid of that one word from the bill, but it was there at first. Like I said before, NASA, their Charged Aerosol Release Experiment program publicly talks about in the newspapers, yeah, we make noctilucent clouds. Yeah, we use the atmosphere as a laboratory. We spray aluminum, barium, and strontium in your atmosphere with these planes and jets, and we have a budget of $52 million a day. You're welcome. This document is very revealing. 2025, okay, that's what year the Air Force claimed to want to own the weather by. I say they're well ahead of schedule. This document was released in 1994. Weather as a force multiplier, owning the weather by 2025, okay? So in the mid-90s, people started to see the lines in the sky that weren't there before. They started to ask questions. They started to get rainwater tests. They started to basically learn that the chemical constituents in the sprays were heavy metal toxins. Then, around that same time in the late 90s, the airplane companies, the different Delta, United, and all these flight attendants started getting sick, okay? And they weren't getting sick before, and they had to come up with a term. They had to give it a name called aerotoxic syndrome, okay? Introduced in 1999. Why weren't flight attendants getting sick in 1989? President Ahmadinejad of Iran. Mind you, Iran is one of the last countries that still has a non-Rothschild, non-central bank, right? And the powers that be do not like that, in case you've done your research. So he comes out and he says, they are emptying the clouds so they will not move our way. This clip is in my film, Frankenskies, but literally the president of Iran is saying, can you please stop your weather war on us? Didn't we vote on this a long time ago? So, speaking of weather as a weapon, this hurricane was weaponized for the first time in recorded history. Hurricane Joaquin. This is 4 years ago. This is North Carolina. And this is the first and only time that a hurricane created a directional arm. So as this hurricane kept spinning, an arm was formed and flooded a 1,000-year, once-in-a-lifetime flood of North Carolina, okay? And it was termed an atmospheric river fire hose, gave it a fancy name, and this hurricane moved and spun and went up the coast while this arm literally sat in place and targeted just one area and flooded it, weaponized hurricanes on our own populace. And if you know about the situation in India, I'm sorry to say a lot of people are on the verge of losing their livelihoods because of the droughts induced by our agendas. We know what we're doing. We're giving water to who we want and who we don't want. This is really sad, really scary, and people need to know about this because millions of people are on the verge of catastrophe, I'm sorry. And I mean, we dictate if they get water, like this is, the blood is not really on our hands, but it's on the hands of our government, and we need to know this. National Geographic, this is very recent, this is from a couple weeks ago. Hurricanes are moving slower, okay? I hope by now in the presentation you're already thinking for yourselves, and you're like, wait a second, Matt just said that we control hurricanes. I'm gonna do a little research, you know? Because why would hurricanes start acting differently? Come on. And this is a huge problem. Well, yeah, Hurricane Maria, I could go on about hurricanes for a long time, but suffice it to say, they're weaponized. So, a lot of people know about HAARP, some people don't. I don't know about all the people out here, like, it's a advanced version of this chemtrail conversation. We're gonna brush over it. It could be a conversation in and of itself. The Highly Active Auroral Research Program is this frequency manipulation of the atmosphere. So first, the chemtrails are spray planes. These are atmospheric aerosols, aerosolized metallics in the atmosphere. Aluminum, dust, different types of metals, okay, mixed. Then once they mix together, they're zapped with frequencies, radio wave frequencies. This is Tesla technology. And in doing so, you can manipulate ecosystems. You can create heat waves. You can superheat the atmosphere to the temperature of the sun by doing this. And so then you can create high pressure systems, steer jet streams, make heat waves, like I said, cause drought, even cause earthquakes with these things. So this is what it looked like when it first came out. This is actually old technology now. And in the film Frankenskies, they even talk about it publicly, and they're giving it up for research to the University of Alaska, I believe. They're passing it on. But what it was is an antenna array, okay? All these antennas pick a focal point in the atmosphere that can be miles and miles, hundreds and thousands of miles away. They pick a focal point in the atmosphere, and they can superheat that atmospheric region. Ideally, there's chemtrails laid out, metallics, to help it superheat, and then they work hand in hand together. And like I said, by making high pressure, you can steer the jet streams. If you watch the weather, there's, okay? Essentially, NextRad controls the weather in the United States, but there's all sorts of these golf balls on mountainsides and mobile platforms, and they do what HAARP does, but in a simplified version, right? They're much smaller than these massive antenna arrays in Alaska. Nikola Tesla said, you control the frequencies, the resonant frequencies of the Earth. You can control the entire biological system, the brain and the Earth itself. Control the resonant system electronically, we can directly control the entire mental system of mankind. So it gets pretty deep when you start to control frequency. It's not just manipulating the weather, we are beings of frequency. Okay? And I'll get into that in my other presentation on EMF and frequency and 5G and whatnot. So if you're still on the fence and you want something to sink your teeth into, share with your friends, families, and peers, well, the patents really tell the story. 1974, barium release rockets, a system to create ionized clouds in the upper atmosphere. 1975, powder contrail generation. I mean, like, this is light scattering pigment powder particles, surface treated to minimize interparticular cohesive forces dispersed from a jet. Okay? When you patent something, it's not because you have this radical idea and it's just going to sit on a shelf. It's because it's going to be implemented, right? This is 40 years ago now. Creation of artificial ionization clouds above the Earth, 1991. Stratospheric well-batched seeding for reduction of global warming, 1991. Aluminum-tolerant genetics, 2009. Well, what you spray in the atmosphere rains down on our crops and gives people dementia. It's in the movie Frankenskies, and there's no wonder why Alzheimer's and dementia rates are going through the roof. This aluminum's being sprayed on us and our foods, and Monsanto preemptively foresaw an issue and now has the aluminum-tolerant genetics rights. So imagine a dystopian future where there's so much aluminum sprayed that the only things that can grow are Monsanto seeds that are resistant to aluminum. Enhanced aerial delivery systems, large quantities of fluids and powders. Agent materials transported aerially dispersed by aircraft, 2010. Patents detail the aerosol distribution. We've got centrifugal aerosol distributor, dispenser, stratospheric seeding, liquid atomizing apparition. The list of the geoengineering patents actually goes on and on and on and on and on. The patents alone tell the story. Check out this patent, harmonic resonance manipulation, and it looks just like what we see in our skies when we see this manipulation ongoing. Look up for just a couple of weeks, you're going to see this, and you're going to start to really, really see that it's ongoing even over your home. So this group of globalists came together under Warren Buffett a few years ago, and they claimed that they had exclusive rights to saving the planet. Wow, that's a pretty big claim. They say that they have geoengineering inventions that do not have to face scrutiny, that do not have to face patent laws, and that they want to launch and deploy full-scale deployment and spray everywhere on Earth all at once to, quote, save us from ourselves. But they happen to have the patents and are going to get paid a lot from it and are going to be in charge because they're the ones. So they say the reasoning behind it is that there's all these patents coming out and that the patent law can't keep up with the amount of patents that are coming, so they just need to sidestep the patents and start spraying the planet globally. So in 2017, they had people come together, and they call themselves a solar geoengineering governance regime, a self-proclaimed regime in the United States. Came together in Chicago, and they say, we are the solar geoengineering governance regime. Answer to us, the world. And they said, we're going to table questions if you want to submit papers. So I hired a PhD. I submitted my own paper about ethics, and I said, yeah, you should take into consideration ethics. Because they were asking, should we take into consideration ethics and human rights? And I wrote this whole paper with a PhD. It was declined, right? But they asked these questions. What role will public perception and opinion play in a governance regime for geoengineering? What role will public perception play? Meaning, is the public going to wake up to us spraying, and then are they going to do something, or are we going to be able to trick them? Given the ethical framework of the precautionary principle, should the development and use of the most potentially dangerous technologies simply be banned? What? Wait. We have dangerous technologies. Should they be banned? Or should we just go ahead and use our dangerous stuff on everybody because we can, because whatever? Solar Geoengineering Governance Regime, 2017. And these are the pictures that they're painting. They say that geoengineering, spraying the skies with chemicals, will all of a sudden make everything bluer, even though it's the exact opposite. Peer-reviewed survey finds majority of scientists are skeptical on global warming crisis. So yeah, I'm telling you right now that the news is fake and there's both sides and whatever and it's all controlled, but there are actually people saying, wait a second, this is not even going on. So how do they get away with it? Well, cartoons, normalization, indoctrination, Hollywood, all of the media. And here they are even introducing new cloud types so that we don't question the past, present, and future. Oh, cool, it's called a cloud now. According to BBC meteorologists, the trails left behind the sky by airplanes, known by many as chemtrails, will now be added to an official cloud reference encyclopedia, solidifying their status as a scientifically recognized phenomenon. I'm confused. I thought they were fake. Engineering the climate or deploying disaster. Applying just war theory to geoengineering. You see that little line right there? That's them blocking our sun. But it looks nice and friendly, right? Because of the sweet little photo. Blocking the sun to save crops from rising temperatures will actually harm them. Study warns. Okay, wait a second. So this is common sense. Blocking the sun is going to kill the plants. But they make it so manipulated that we read it and we're like, rising temperatures harm the plants. Is this good or bad? Like, I think they're going to kill the plants, but rising temperatures. I've been programmed to think that global warming is going to kill me. So I'm okay with the plants dying as long as I'm confused. Study looks into belief that chemtrails are real. So at the exact same time, they're telling you they're adding chemtrails as a cloud, but this says 10% of Americans believe chemtrail conspiracy theory is completely true, with 20 to 30% believing it's somewhat true in a startling new study. Major publications are running this weird, and like after you've read a few of these, how confusing is this? So if you're part of the 10%, you're a minority and you should be ashamed of yourself, I guess. You shouldn't think chemtrails are real. And so many people still believe chemtrails are real. They shouldn't, but that photo is not chemtrails. The strange role of chemtrails in the debate. So they're saying that they're going to fix the climate with that? The bad idea that we need. Bad idea, we need to stop climate change. We're going to fake a volcano. Artificially reduce the sun's rays to stop global warming. Wow, well, like, which side do I want? Probably the one that they tell me is the best, because that one looks really bad. You know, look how simple they make it to program us. These pictures, and then you get your friends, family, and peers coming to you and saying, no, geoengineering is good. I saw a photo, I read an article. They didn't even read the article. They saw it on their timeline. They didn't even click it. And if they did, it would have been full of lies anyways. Wow, the idea that we will science our way out of climate change is dangerous. Problem, reaction, solution. The reaction, they have to make sure it's fear. Okay, that's the most important aspect, because when we're in fear, we're controlled. So this, to most people, that's pretty scary, I'm sorry. Not sure what the rainbows have to do with anything, but you got to get everybody involved, right? So this is targeting a certain demographic, and it says, we possess planet-shaping powers, planet-shaping technologies, climate engineering, and gene editing. Earth Day. We're going to make, the Earth look really different and maybe like a rainbow or something like this. Is just mind control nonsense. So it's going to be affordable. Oh, 2012. They're going to spray the sky. It's going to be affordable. $5 billion a year, they're calling it. Okay. It's cheap but dangerous. An article by David Keith, the guy with all the patents, that's behind it all, in PBS. Sorry, folks, chemtrails conspiracies are BS. Well, I'm really confused now. They are just trying to confuse you. Chemtrails are not real. Chemtrails aren't a thing. Sorry, chemtrails are false. Atmospheric acid can cool the atmosphere. Aerosols could alleviate global warming. Aerosols can significantly cool down the planet. An antacid for atmosphere could cool down planet Earth. Harvard scientists identify aerosol that could cool the planet down, repair the ozone layer at the same time. Scientists develop aerosols to relieve global warming. Annoyed scientists publish study on chemtrail conspiracy theories. Chemtrail conspiracy theories are fake. Imagine if you're just trying to be a normal person out there and you don't want to get deep into all of this, you would literally just throw your hands up without having a solid opinion. And without a solid opinion, you have no stance. And without a stance, you're not going to even share the information with your friend, family, and peers, let alone stand up and be the change you need to see in the world. Geoengineering could be a disaster for astronomy. So this is how they're going to spoon feed us. We're going to block the sun, but we're not going to tell the people we're going to block the sun. We're first going to talk about the night sky. The astronomers are going to lose their stars. Well, that's a really gentle way of saying we're going to block your sun. Block the view of the night sky. Astronomers, well, I'm not an astronomer, so I guess, I don't know. Playing God. Obama promotes geoengineering. Wow, God. Federal green light. The Trump presidency opens the door to planet-hacking geoengineering experiments. Geoengineering gets green light from federal scientists. Aerosols to protect the Earth. Global warming will be sprayed in the atmosphere next year. So this was in 2017, and they really wanted to do this experiment in 2018. And then they come out with these new clouds, and this woman who kind of looks really like a robot or something, but I'm not going to go there, she comes out and says 12 new clouds, and almost all of the 12 clouds are geoengineering, each one. I mean, where did 12 new clouds come from anyways? They didn't exist for centuries, and now we're giving these things names. Are we about to be told these headlines, okay? I know it's a lot of headlines, but I just want everyone to see what we are given as information. Are we about to be told chemtrails are real? Look at those photos. How confusing is this after all that other stuff that I just showed you? They're real, they're fake. We're going to tell you the real. Harvard says they could save the Earth. We've got 11 new cloud types. Controversial, but they're including plain vapor trails. Conspiracy theory, no more. Harvard reveals big oil approved. Is that a good thing? Stratospheric injection engineering, geoengineering. And then they got a needle stick in the earth. And then what are they going to call the persistent contrails of the Cirrus family that are formed over a period of time under the influence of strong upper winds, blah, 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 the chemtrail clouds? What are they going to give the official name of the chemtrail clouds? I thought this was a joke at first, and I was like, no, it's not a joke. And then I posted it on my Facebook. Everyone was like, oh, nice meme, Matt, so funny. And I said, no, this is reality, people. Homo mutatus is the name of those clouds now. And they said, well, in Latin, that means transformation of humans. And I'm like, or man-made, whatever, but I don't know, but it's like, these names didn't exist. Why would they give us the new names right on the verge of introducing us to this as the solution to our fear-monger problems that aren't even really our problems? It's a complete control paradigm, people, okay? So they're gonna do an experiment. They're gonna launch this huge study. This big experiment was to unravel, and they keep hammering home and giving these things. Fire rainbow was the name of one of these clouds. Cloud iridescence was the name of the other one. Circumhorizontal arc. One of my coworkers said, no, Matt, I swear, my coworker, this is a true story. No, Matt, that's a circumhorizontal arc. You know how smart he sounded? You know how smart he thought he was by memorizing that word and telling me? I was like, bro, they just made up that word. He's like, no, I read it. Boom, indoctrination. The kids, they're just told how to think. These are the new clouds, these are the old clouds. And if the parents aren't going to tell them any different, they're just going to be taught things like this. Cloud streets, new name for clouds. Didn't exist before. New term. We'll just put a quote around it. Cloud streets, it's unusual. Cool. We'll tell people that they're cool. Fire rainbows, cool, they're cool, they're cool. Okay? And then we'll give them a few other names. Homogenitus. And they talk about, oh yeah, here comes your homogenitus clouds of the day. So, but then they have this plan to dim the sun, and it's exactly what we were seeing as the thing that we were told wasn't real, and then all of a sudden, in 2017, they're governing something that we were told was a conspiracy and wasn't real. That's really weird that they would want to govern something that doesn't exist. And then they say that global warming is unstoppable without geoengineering, fearmonger us right into it, and they say that there's machines that could darken the sun. How is that appetizing to anybody? Look at this. Okay? The dangerous belief that extreme technology could fix the climate. Can we engineer our way out of global warming? So this is a photo, okay? This is a photo from the media from last year. And this photo got pushed around to the people, to us, as our possible, hopeful future. they say, look what we can do. Look what we can do with this beautiful solar geoengineering. We can give you a planet that looks like this. Does this look like a planet that you want to live on? I don't think so, okay? They're controlling our minds and telling us that they're going to basically turn our planet into an ice age by taking away our source of life. But they're posing it as this like briefing, like it's already happening and we should be thankful for it, but we still have time. And they say that they want to do full-scale deployment by mimicking a volcanic eruption because volcanoes put dust in the atmosphere, and that's how they are normalizing it to the public. And they claim if they start, they can't stop, okay? And that it's very, very dangerous. And they claim if they start, they cannot stop. But its sudden collapse would doom the planet. So if they start, they can't stop. They have to keep going forever once they start dimming our sun. Because if they stop, we're doomed. How is this good? In regard to this question of should we actually spray the sun and like, this is crazy, are you serious? He says in 2010, quote, "It's an empirical question how people will actually react to knowledge about this. And by the way, it's not really a moral hazard. It's more like free riding on our grandkids." He said that, this guy. And he's been promoted to the top of this campaign to govern? Who gets sun and who does not? He says, if we turn down the sun a little bit, that'll bring the Earth's energy more into balance. And he's on this huge ego trip. He keeps talking about the thermostat. He says, I'm the one that's going to be in charge of this thermostat. And here the media says that he was to do an experiment to block the sun for climate change. Well, I'll tell you what, that experiment was supposed to happen in Arizona, and the Trump administration was behind it. It was supposed to happen in 2018 in Tucson, Arizona. I moved to Arizona. I hosted a conference in Arizona, in Tucson. I had a protest on Mother's Day for Mother Earth, bringing awareness to this experiment to dim the sun. I had a concert, I had the conference, and we made waves throughout all of Arizona, in the entire world really, but especially in Tucson. And although all the media publications and David Key said they were going to do this experiment to spray the sun to see which chemicals work best to take away our sunlight, they were proposing spraying aluminum. They had different variable nanoparticulate sizes of aluminum. They think the aluminum would work best. But also they're going to spray diamond dust. And they think the diamonds might be expensive, so they don't think it's going to work. They're also going to spray sulfuric acid. But they thought maybe it'd kill a lot of people, and they didn't want to do that one. They're also going to spray mirrors, but they thought the mirrors couldn't float in space. So basically, they were just going to spray aluminum and tell you, oh, look, we found the chemical that works best to dim your sun. So we came together as activists, and we did everything we can to raise the alarm. And we didn't butt up against people's cognitive dissonance and say chemtrails are real. We said, do you consent to an experiment in your city to dim your sun with chemicals? And people came out of the woodwork and they said no. And they didn't do the experiment. They said they were going to do it, and they didn't. And so here's the experiment as it was supposed to unravel with the Strato Cruiser. Okay, it's supposed to happen in 2018, never happened. And here's the experiment where he's talking about what he's going to spray and Worldview Enterprises and where it's going to be. And here he is saying he's moving ahead and he's going to have this experiment. But guess what? It didn't happen. Here's the news saying how they're going to do it and how they're going to, it's even out of the UK. It says they're going to do this plan. Check it out. And then they even said to normalize it, they started saying, oh, it's just salt. We're going to try salt too, a dusting of salt. Throwing salt in the atmosphere might help. We're going to use table salt. Don't worry, we're going to use table salt out of the Planetary Science Institute, which is also in Tucson. All this disinformation about the salt started rolling out of just Tucson right before this planned experiment. Arizona-based Planetary Science Institute, they kept coming out saying, oh, we're just going to put salt in the atmosphere. We're going to spray salt, because they wanted to dumb it down and not get people freaked out. But the truth got out. The truth got out, and we had a huge victory. It's actually the biggest thing I've ever done in my life, and will probably ever be. I mean, I plan on doing great things, but really, we did something. Incredible. And then the next year, it snowed in Las Vegas, and maybe people started scratching their heads and saying, maybe we don't need to dim the sun, you know? So here we are, a couple months ago. The disinformation propaganda machine never stops. Bill Gates wants to fund a chemical cloud that could help stop global warming. And they show us a volcano because that's the normalization. But if you look behind the volcano, there's already some chemtrails sprayed in the sky. That's the real truth. And then they'll tell you, see, what they want to do is every single argument that you have, is geoengineering good, is it bad? Every single side, all of it, they want to control both sides of the conversation, both sides of the argument. They want to control it all. So climate engineering should not be considered a public good. This is on Halloween 2019. Then they say, should humans attempt to modify the climate be considered a public good? So they tell you it shouldn't be a public good, maybe it's a public good. They're already controlling the dialogue on how the debate goes. Now there's a debate. Is it a public good? Is it not a public good? Well, of course it's not a public good, but when you polarize things in duality, you make an argument and then you get people disagreeing on things and then there's no resolution and then they get to do whatever they want, you see? So, please, please, please. This information is really important. There's a lot of more research that you could do, but especially looking up and just pointing it out to people, okay? Silence on these issues is actually consent, and we do not consent to all this. For me, my activism path started here when I hosted the first annual Global Chemtrail Summit, May 7th, 2016. I packed the house at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, Canada, and since then it's been full throttle. I've just been running, trying to bring awareness to this, and then I made the movie Frankenskies. Please check it out, frankenskiesthemovie.com, okay? And it's just been nonstop trying to bring awareness to it against the disinformation, misinformation, propaganda machine. But you see, in 2016, when I first started going with it, there wasn't that geoengineering solution propaganda media. They weren't saying that. So it's been a wild ride, and the information has been so tainted and twisted to control the truth from really surfacing. Okay? So please check out Frankenskies, The Lies in Our Skies Exposed. I've got DVDs for anybody that wants one in the back. And again, frankenskiesthemovie.com. It's also on YouTube, Vimeo. And please understand the gravity of this situation, okay? Our ancestors, they fought for us to get to where we're at, okay? Our bloodlines stood up to oppression and did what they had to do for us to have the truths that we now take for granted. Please honor all of this with integrity, the truth, your ancestry, the real information, and know that if you don't bring it forward, it might be lost. So people ask, what can I do? All right? Some people, they make signs on their trucks. Some people actually get tattoos. I'm not saying go out and get a chemtrail tattoo. I'm saying honor what truth you can with what you have. Please. If you can knit for truth. If you're really adamant that fluoride shouldn't be in the water, honor that. Bring that home. Share that with people. Do what you can. Be who you can be. And as an activist, as an actual activist, you'll never regret it, because as you resonate fully on that vibration of truth, all these other truths become self-evident, and you get to be the best you can possibly be. Okay? So finally, Malcolm X, he said, the biggest mistake that he ever made was trying to mobilize a sleeping populace. Right? So first and foremost, we have to bring the truth to the people before we even do anything. So it's really important that we honor the truth with integrity and be the change that we want to see in the world, because without us coming together in unity, they're going to take away our sun. I'm sorry. Thank you so much, and thank you for caring. Thank you for having me.